We've been talking about it for a decade, and here we are.
I know. 10 years later, it's crazy. Happy 10th anniversary, first of all, for you.
Happy 10-year anniversary, man. I still remember us sitting down in town center in Dubai, and I think we met at this coffee shop there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, we started to talk, and here we are 10 years later, still talking.
Yeah. Well, thanks to your sister, actually. I was a big fan of your sister, and I met her at a salon, and it was so random. And that's why I love it. I was like, we were meant to meet. I met her at a salon,
Yeah,
and she's like, you need to meet my sister. And I said, say less. Let's
yeah.
do it. I
It's
love
funny
it.
how it's funny how we like ended up meeting, and then how, although we come from different cultures, we have such similarities in terms of cultural background. We have similar ways in which we were both raised, I think. And also, I think the vibe from the beginning, I think we came into it with no expectations. And both of us are the type of women who like are not super like obsessed with clinging to each other. So it just flowed because we always did our thing, and we kind of found our way back into a conversation, or when we went out, the vibe was right. So I think that's where it all started. It started out with the fact that it was just two people who met each other and ended up really liking each other, and just the friendship kind of took its path from there.
Yeah. And before we get into like chatting about some kind of growth experiences we've had, I do have to appreciate the fact that it's very rare to find a friend. I think you understand what I mean, but it's very rare to find a friend who you can be yourself with and not be judged, because friends will
Yeah.
judge. And even in the beginning of our friendship, like I was like, okay, if I drop this bomb, like is she gonna judge me, you know? And then like over time, I was like, Bahari, I could actually tell her anything. Like she won't actually judge. She'll keep it real with me, but she won't actually judge. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, okay, so like, like we get each other, and that's it. And I think that's rare because, it's normal. Like, people grow apart, and or you say something to your friend, and then you like you feel judged, and then you're like, okay, I don't know if I can be friends with somebody who's judging me for this thing that I'm done or I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's what I have to say. Like, I appreciate about you because you keep it real, but you don't judge. And you might be like, that was stupid. Don't do that again. But you won't judge me for it. You know what I mean?
No, because look, I mean, I think also, I've done so much in life myself. So I've judged myself enough to know that it's not a safe place and it's not a happy place. And I think when you find somebody, I think this is the thing about friendship that I can say that I've learned. I'm turning 45 soon. And I think I've had a lot of friendships. I've had a lot of acquaintances. You meet people through work. So you form different types of friends. But I think the type of friends that stand the test of time are the ones that make your nervous system feel balanced. Where when you're with them, you are just regulated. Even if you're having a stressful moment, even when you've had a bad day, whether it's work or it's personal, but when you're with that person, you kind of like feel like, okay, I can just be the most raw version of myself. And this person's not going to either shut me down or not going to just give me the hoo ha and try and make me feel better just for the sake of it, that fake stuff. It just comes in authenticity. I never felt like there was ever a need to have any kind of mask with you. And I think in life we go through this thing where we just have to wear masks, depending on whether we're a family, when we're at work, in the social setting that we're in, or just in general. Even if you walk into a supermarket, you wear a specific type of mask to go grocery shopping, right? So I think with you, I just never felt like I needed to wear a mask, and it was nice to be myself, and to be rough around the edges. And you didn't judge that. You just took me for who I am, and we just built on that. And I think one thing I appreciate about you is exactly the same thing. It's like you are just yourself. I have to tell you, and it's going to be so funny. People are like, "Oh my God, they're just like hug it out, get a room." I really, I really look up to how intelligent you are, and you're one of my friends where you just you put so much effort into building yourself intellectually. And when you have somebody who's always wanting to better themselves, and can meet you at an intellectual level but also can meet you at a ratchet level. You don't find too many people too many people like that. So it was the intellectual space where I could go out and I could, we can grab a cocktail and talk about like the stuff that girls talk about, but at the same time, we can get into these really deep conversations that, you come out of it, you're like, wow, that really challenged my mind. So yeah, I just always look up to you. It's funny because all of the people I look up to in my life and I have a special place for in my heart is like, they're probably younger than me, but I feel like age has nothing to do with it, because your peers, it's not about how much older or how much younger they are. It's like, how much value do they add to your life, and what do they want to do to make you a better person, you know? So yeah, kudos to you. I really like I admire what you've done. I've seen your hustle the last 10 years. I saw how hard you worked in Dubai. I saw how that decisions, do I leave? Do I stay? And then you ended up taking this leap of faith and you decided to leave it, like the path you've created for yourself. So you should be really proud of yourself as well.
Thank you. This wasn't supposed to be a crying session, but you might make me cry at some point today. I'm all in all my feelings. I'm all shedding today, you know. So I'm all up on my feelings. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, and you've seen it all, and I think it is something to also kind of we can discuss in some of these conversations. Is like, how do you know when to move on? And I think we both have had those experiences. You know, how do you let go? Whether it's an opportunity, a job, a relationship. But yeah, I mean, listen, I feel the exact same way plus some about you, and I think, and as we go through these conversations, I think people will also see who you are as a person and how strong you are as a mother, as a human being, as a woman, like as so many things. And I think if anything we learned over the last 10 years of friendship is that context matters.
Context matters indeed. Amen.
And that yeah, and that is what these the conversations are gonna be about, really, you know, because I think that there's, you know, like every time you talk about a situation, like friends talk about a situation, then it's like, well, there's so many ways that you can look at this situation, whatever it is. And I think that's what I've learned, at least like in our friendship, is like context matters. And that's the kind of conversations we want to bring to life and through these conversations. So let me kick us off with like, you know, I think we can spend hours talking about like the things that we've learned, but like what has been like the biggest aha moment for you in the last 10 years? Let's just start at
The
macro.
biggest aha moment is I remember at one point, probably, I think it was a year and a half ago, I decided to take the leap of faith and start doing like therapy because I had been thinking about it for a very, very long time. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just try it out. And I was sitting with the lady, and she was, God bless her, really, really nice lady. And she kind of was like, you know, Bahari, there's a difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. And she's like, I can see that you have a lot of self-confidence, but I can see from what you've told me. And I didn't really, I was only a matter of 6 months that I was with her for whatever, the reasoning that it was. But your self-esteem kind of is, for what you told me as your life story has gone like up and down. And it was one of this like truly aha moments where I'd never really thought about it because I always thought self-confidence and self-esteem kind of go hand in hand like this. And the more I
Yeah.
sat and thought about it with myself, it did make sense because there is a big difference. You can seem like you're very, very confident, but your
Like on the
self-esteem might
outside,
not be
you
a,
mean? Like on the
yeah,
outside, you mean? Yeah.
yeah, on the outside or just in general, because one thing I've noticed a lot of people always like tell me like, "Oh my God, you look like you have your stuff together because you're a single mom and you're working and you work out and you do this and you do that." And on the outside that could look like a lot of confidence. But then on the inside, people don't really see how much you struggle with your self-esteem, where you feel like you're not good enough, or you compare yourself to other people and you think like you're not smart enough, or maybe people keep telling you where you think of it as, oh, I have a lot of empathy, but people keep telling you you're too emotional. So for me, over the last 10 years, and more so, I want to say over the last 2 years, because I feel like, we're in the year of the snake now, this is the last day of shedding before we go into this big cycle, which is supposed to be the fire horse. And I can definitely say the last 2 years of life have been very much about shedding a lot of different things, whether it's been shedding of people, shedding of old versions of yourself, shedding of relationships, whatever types they are. And that has been rooted in understanding the difference between what my self confidence is and what my self esteem is. And I've had to work really, really hard on the esteem part of it because it's something that I've never been very good at. And I really had to like hone in on that. And sometimes in life, you really have to focus on giving yourself your own flowers. We don't do that enough. We're so much
Yeah.
in that do, especially if you're somebody, and I think you're like that as well. And I think it comes to how our upbringing was, where you just had to always do and you had to excel. And you always set this bar, and then when you achieve this, you want to go here and here and here. So when you're constantly doing and doing and doing, you don't stop to pause and give yourself the flowers that you deserve because you always feel like I got to do better. I'm not doing good enough. At least for me, that's what that's what I did for myself. So just pausing and understanding myself, shedding what I needed to shed or who I needed to shed, and then working on that self-esteem really. That's been
Mm.
the big thing for me the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're absolutely right. And I mean, as you know, I've struggled with the same kind of things. I think, you can portray yourself as something else. And I think that's naturally as you grow up in a certain way. And, in your case, you were the older daughter, you were really responsible. I'm not the older daughter, but I feel like I'm the older daughter. And so you always have to kind of have it together. And I think there's also this not only family, but then also this societal expectation. And then over the years, for me personally, at least, I built this like shell around myself, like this
Mm.
shell where it's like, well, I have to appear a certain way. And then
Yeah,
having grown up in Russia, for me, it was like, growing up in Russia, as you know, it's all about what do other people think of you. And so we're literally programmed to make sure that no matter what's going on inside, as long as the outside world thinks that you got yourself together, that's all that matters. And what that did to me, at least, is it's made me focus so much on the outside. So I was like really good at like portraying X, but then the inside, to your point, as you're speaking, I'm like, yeah, like the self-esteem wasn't always there. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It's because I was so focused on like, as long as the external looks good, like I'm good. And that was like the lie I told myself for many years. And I think it's like goes back to like putting band-aids on broken legs until eventually you're like, well, damn, I have to have surgery now at this point, because I've
yeah.
let it go for so long. And yeah, and I think it's very relevant. I think a lot of people feel this way. I think especially women that are, independent, kind of got their stuff together, whatever that means to somebody, right? Like I think just somebody who feels like, they worked hard on themselves and so on. Like it's just I think it's very relevant to a lot of people, and I think we don't always talk about it openly like that,
Mm.
perhaps. But I think at the end of the day, if people were to pause, I think it is a great distinction. There's self-confidence, but then there's self-esteem. And it's like, how do you make sure you balance both? Or actually, more importantly, how do you focus on the self-esteem part more?
Yeah, because it's like where, you buy yourself a little black dress and you buy it
Mm,
because you're buying black because black makes you look skinny. And, I think a lot of or most women have some type of issues with the way they look physically. So you'll buy that little black dress and you look really great inside it and you put it together. But then when you're wearing that and you know that you look great in it, you're still walking into whatever room or space hoping that it looks good to other people, right? Whereas you should just be happy about the fact that when you look in the mirror, you like the way you look, you feel sexy, you feel like, okay, girl, you look good. You don't really need somebody. So it's like a matter of validation, right? I think it's also, and to your point, yeah, I think Russian culture and Iranian culture have a lot in common. And I think maybe that's also the thing that kind of you're my first Dagestan. I didn't even know Dagestan, But then I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then as you told me more about your culture, I was just like, because I'm from the north of Iran, so we're right on the Caspian, and we're very close to you guys,
yeah,
right? And of course,
yeah,
back in the day when like we used to have a lot of Russian influence because when you're on coastal, you're by the port, you have a lot of people that visit your shores, right? So we had a lot of Russian influence as well. We have a lot of things in our diet, especially in the north, that I would believe have Russian culture. So again, I think the personalities also worked where we're both very straight shooters. There's no sugarcoating things, which I really appreciate. Now, it has to come in like doses as well, but then I think that that part of our friendship where we're both straight shooters and we tell it like it is allowed us the space to feel like, okay, if I don't feel like my self-esteem is all that great, this person gives me the space to kind of be that,
hmm,
be in that stage of my self-esteem where the battery is a little bit low. But then at the same time, I can also be fully charged and we're going to go out dancing and we're going to have a really, really good time, right? So I think a lot of times that we bonded together, we just like we're like two crazy girls who like to dance, and we were just like,
yeah,
oh my God, she enjoys it as much as I do. So yeah. But I think having back to the friendship part of it, having a friend that allows you to be who you are and doesn't judge you and gives you the space to have your moments where your self-confidence is high or low, or your self-esteem is high or low, is just really, really important. It's hard to come by because we live in a world where everything is about, especially now, what it looks like on the outside to people from the outside, right? Doing the internal stuff takes a lot of deep delving, and people don't like to go beneath the surface because it's too much work. It's easier to sit and have a coffee with someone and stay
Yeah.
superficial. But then when you decide to tear back the layers and want to get deep into that person, it comes with a burden of responsibility. And maybe burden is not the right word. It comes with a responsibility that not everybody wants to have, because that person might give you something about their life that you have to sit with and understand. And maybe you don't know what to do with that. So maybe somebody who doesn't have the emotional intelligence for it will just be like, nah, I just want to do coffee and shopping and talk about clothes and shoes and stuff. But the other person will be like, does that come from somewhere? What happened to you? Who hurt you?
Listen, first of all, I have to make a very important note that we knew Dagestan was awesome before Habib made it famous, okay? That's all I have to put out
Amen.
there, okay?
Amen. Amen to
Nobody
that.
knew where
Amen to that.
Dagestan was. We knew before, before
Amen
Habib
to
made it
that.
famous. So anyway, but yeah, no, it's I think to the point of like when you're sitting with somebody, I think it also requires you to have a level of vulnerability in order for you to share, because people won't share with you if you're not sharing with them. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like usually the opening up comes when somebody's like sharing something vulnerable. You're like, oh, okay, so they've kind of created a safe space, and you're like, okay, well, if they're sharing, maybe I feel safe to share. And a lot of people don't want to share. And that's the challenge,
True.
like a lot of people just don't want to
Yeah.
open up and share, or maybe they try to get information from you, but they don't really want to share their thing. And that goes back to being uncomfortable, self-esteem, being uncomfortable to actually bring to the surface what is it that you're struggling with, right? Not saying you should share it with everybody. I'm talking about friends. Like I'm talking about true
Yeah.
friends. And I have to give credit to Orsi. So you know Orsi, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So Orsi
Yeah.
kind of sat me down a long time ago. This was like years ago, and we're still in Dubai. And I was going through a tough time, and I didn't really tell anybody. And then Orsi and I had a chat, and I was like, "Hey, this is what I went through." And she said, "Wait a minute." She's like, "You didn't tell me what you were going through." She was like, "What kind of?" She's like, Why didn't you tell me? That's what friends are for. This is what I'm here for." And it made me realize I was like, oh, like I not only did I not want to open up, like I didn't even want to share what I was going through because I felt like I was going to be judged and so on. So it also required me to be like, oh, like I need to be comfortable sharing those things. And it's like it's a two-way street, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? It's a two-way
Yeah, because you're
street.
right. You're right. Look, there's compartments in that. Sometimes people form friendships where it's about trauma bonding, right? And
Mm,
those are never the healthy type of friendships. I've experienced those and I've had to cut those out because I realized that I was enabling and I was partaking. So when that light bulb went off, I was like, you know what? When I really think about it, this is just a trauma bonding kind of situation and it's not doing any there's nothing that's going upward. It's just staying stagnant and that's it. It's just trauma. When it comes to the support that you can get from your friends who want to help you, this is also another thing I had to learn is sometimes as a person, you're so used to doing everything by yourself, with yourself, that it's hard to ask for help or it's hard to want to share because maybe sometimes you've shared it and people don't want to listen or they felt burdened and then you're like, well, I wish I hadn't done that because now they're going to think that every time I want to talk to them, I want to put a burden on them for them to heal me or take care of me. Sometimes you just need people to listen to you, right? Because only when they listen to you will they be able to understand what's going on. And hopefully, they might be able to give you constructive feedback or support without judging you, which we all want. Look,
mm,
whether we like it or not, we judge, okay? All of
yeah.
us judge. I posted something and I noticed you reposted it as well. And I thought it would just hit so hard, where we're all sinners,
Mm-hmm.
but we choose the kind of sin that we're comfortable with. And then we judge the kind of sin that, we're not comfortable with. But if you
Mm-hmm.
really think about it, we are all sinners in life in one way or the other. Even the most pious person, the most religious person, whatever your relationship with God is and what branch of religion you choose to go down to do that, we are all sinners. So it's the same thing. We are also all judgmental. It's just that, I guess, depending on how close the person is to your heart, you choose how harsh your judgment is going to be, right?
Mm,
So it's important that you do give yourself that space to allow yourself to go and speak to your friends and say, hey, I'm going through this. What do you think? Can you help me out with it? And if the person really cares about you, they're gonna wanna just listen to you. That in itself is help. I think I've come to you many times. We've spent more time. I wanna say, what is it? When did you leave Dubai? Has it been what, 6 years now?
5 years, yeah.
5 years, yeah. So I think we've spent more time in our friendship over the last 5 years communicating than we probably did when you were living in Dubai. In Dubai,
Yeah.
yes, we did spend time with each other. We did go out, we did dance, and we did have our in-depth conversations. But I feel like in the last half a decade, most of the man, some voice notes that you have of me, you're taking that to your grave, or you're playing it at my funeral. But
Like,
I mean, look, yeah. But I feel like, there's sometimes where, and this is what I love. You should have friends in your life where you don't pick up the phone and say, hey, you just automatically go into this random sermon on a voice note, this, and then maybe a couple of hours passes by and the person gets back to you. Those kind of friendships are really important. And the
mm,
best kind of friendships, and I guess this is why my sister and I are so close, even though like I'm 6 years older than her, she just gives it to you, no sugarcoating, whether you like to hear it or not, she's gonna tell you. And I know sometimes it's hard to hear, where sometimes I even have to say to her, I'm like, listen, just give me a little bit of empathy. Like, I'm not as strong as you are when it comes to that. Like, I can take a lot of punches, but it doesn't always need to be a TKO or, like a
yeah,
submission by choke, taking it back to Dagestan. But the person cares about you. If they're willing to give it to you that honest, they care about you. They're not going to
yeah,
sugarcoat it. They tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or you don't. And as ugly and as hard as it may be to swallow, that person cares about you. They're going to just give it to you straight. So, yeah, it's important.
yeah. And I think there's like nothing wrong with also just saying like I don't agree with your actions, but I'm still your friend and I got you. You know what I'm saying? I think
Yeah.
that's also
Yeah.
okay. I think we've gotten into this space where it's like, well, if you're not exactly like me or if you're making different choices, I mean, we can't be friends anymore. And like, no, that shouldn't work like that. Like you accept your friends as they are. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you should accept them and you might not agree. It's like with your family. I would say like with your kids. Like it's not like you're gonna just get rid of your kids if they do something bad, right? Like no, you'll
Yeah.
accept them, you'll work with them, you'll say, listen, I disagree with this decision, but hey, like I'm still here for you. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that's important just to say, like, I'm still here for you. Like, I don't agree with it. I don't like what you're doing, but I'm still right here. You know what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah.
that's
Because
super
usually
important.
when somebody wants to come and tell you something, maybe there might be a little bit of shame associated with that, right?
Right?
Whatever the scenario
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah.
So they're already coming and unloading something that they feel ashamed about. And then they're coming to talk to you and are like hoping that you're not going to make them feel even more shame because they're already ashamed
Yeah.
themselves, right? We all know what is shameful for us and what is not shameful for us. And depending on who you are as a person, different levels of shame apply for different people, different strokes for different folks when it comes to shame. But I think that if you can come and talk about your shame, with someone, and that person doesn't shame you, then that's a
Mm.
good friend. They might tell you that, okay, yeah, you messed up there. I could use worse language, but this is our first podcast, so I'm just going to try and I'm going to keep it clean.
PG.
Not be my usual self. But yeah, it's hard to find people in life who will not shame you because we as people tend to shame ourselves throughout life, like we're the most, we're most critical of ourselves. So when you have that space to find someone where you can talk to them about your shame and they make you understand or help you talk it through and walk through it, that's really, really fundamental. That talking it through, whatever it is, because that in itself is the first step, right? Having the courage to come and say, yeah, I don't know about
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah, it's just the foundations of communication, and trust and all of that, in friendships and relationships. And I think like one of the things that's like if you're not if imagine if you're not comfortable that with your friends, then in your relationships it's probably even worse. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like that means that it's I feel like it's a character trait. Like that's what I've started to realize. At least that was my learning lesson for the last 10 years is that there are character traits that we should not ignore. And it comes off through friendship, it comes off through relationships, work relationships, and so on. But I think at the end of the day, if you're a person who is unable to create the safe space, if you're a person who goes into judgment and just like, well, dismisses the person or makes them feel shameful, it's like it's a character trait. That means you have not done your own self-awareness. You have not done work because I guarantee there's something in you that you feel shameful about. There's somewhere you messed up in your life, etc. And if you're to me, like if you're interactions with me is you judging or you shaming and all of that, that's a character trait for me. And that is deep. And that is not something you can usually change in a person, nor should you. That's not your job type thing, you know? But that's a whole thing, and that's been, like, for me, like, over the last 10 years, I think I've gotten much better at just recognizing character and building relationships with people based on their character and the base that they're made out of, right?
Yeah.
Because that's so obvious in individuals, especially these days, because we're so socially awkward and messed up from a communication perspective, like, nobody, you know what I'm saying? Like, to your point, like, we're losing
Yeah.
touch of, like, genuine relationships.
I think it's because also, look, I think when we're younger, we're more flexible. So we allow more people in our lives and we allow different shades of people into our lives. And because we're just, at that stage where we just want to explore everything around us. As you go through life and you get those experiences and you learn about yourself, maybe the friendships that you accepted at an earlier stage no longer serve a purpose for you and you don't serve a purpose for that friendship, right? I was always, and I remember this very clear, I've always been like a chameleon in the sense that whatever friend group you can put me in any group and I'm just going to blend in there, right?
Facts.
It just works. But the
Yeah.
thing was when it comes down to my core group of I will say I know a lot of people, but who can I really consider my friend? Maybe I can count it on one palm, maybe two. And I think as you get older, your circle, it's funny, a really close friend of mine sent me this thing where it was this like quote where like, my friends group is so small now, it's like dots, right? And it is true because it just you do end up like having little dots of friendship, not to minimize the importance and validity of that
Right.
friendship. It's just like you get to know yourself, you get to know people, and you realize what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I always like when I meet new female friends, because I grew up as a tomboy, because my dad as a martial artist, because I grew up in a karate environment, it was always easier for me to be friends with guys because I just grew up training in a dojo, teaching in a dojo. I was always around boys. I was very tomboyish myself. So it was just easier, and guys are simple. One plus one
Very.
equals two. Now forget relationships. We're talking about friendships. So girls require or ladies require a little bit more maintenance. And I always like give this disclaimer when I meet some lovely, lovely ladies who maybe we could be like friends. I just always say, listen, I'm not very good. I'm not that girl who's going to always be available for like, coffee on the weekend or we catch up every week. I'm not good with that. If you have a hard time, if something goes wrong, if you need an ambulance, I'm your lady. Like, in times of emergency, put me as your emergency contact. But I can't do these sort of like female friendships where somebody's latching on to me. It's very
Mhm.
difficult for me. I haven't figured out the root cause of that, whatever childhood trauma that comes from. But at least I know it's there. But yeah, and some people get it and some people don't. And I think, again, finding friends who will take you as you are, who will not get offended if you're not available for them when they need you to. And I understand it's a little bit selfish. I'm not saying that that's not selfish of me. It's just that I think it's important to manage people's expectations, right? When you're
Yeah,
completely honest with someone and say, well, this is who I am, and if we're going to engage in this friendship, it's almost like dating in a way. I feel like
it
friendship
is.
nowadays has become like dating because it's like, do we split the bill? That's another podcast.
Yeah,
Another episode for the podcast. But yeah, it's just allowing your friends to be who they need to be and who they want to be with as much without judgment or possibly even if you feel some type of way, you kind of ease into it. You don't hammer them. You just don't like come down really hard and just give the person the space to allow themselves to be whoever they want to be. That's just really really important in a friendship. So I think communication is key. I think honesty is key. I think being able to listen. That's one thing in the last 10 years that I've had to really work on. I hear, but maybe I might
mm,
not listen. So teaching myself to go on and then offer my opinion. That's been a hard one for me. I'll completely admit that.
yeah, it's been a hard one for me too. Podcasting saved me in that one. Like, I've learned to, I really like honed into my listening skills through my podcasting, through the shift that I was
Yeah.
doing. for the last 5 years, it really taught me, like I always say, like that's one of the biggest lessons it taught me is like empathy and listening. Because I tend to also be very reactive, as a person. I'm hot blooded, I'm Russian, so like it's just like I'm very reactive as a person. And also when friends are telling you, you want to just react because you want to help them. You're like, I just need to help. You know what I mean? I need to solve this
Yeah.
problem for you because I care. Sometimes your friends just need to just for you to listen. Actually, I have one of my friends, and she told me one time, she was like, "Is this like a venting session or do you want advice?" And now, before we talk, she would ask me, she'd be like, "Do you want advice or are you just venting?" So so we like agree. And the same thing with her. She'll come to me, she'll be like, "I don't need advice. I don't need Elena, the career coach. I just need you to listen."
But I
And I
appreciate
think that's a
that.
good way. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think that's a very healthy boundary. It's
Yeah.
important because sometimes you just need to vent. You really
Yeah.
need to vent. And then sometimes you need advice, and sometimes within the that span of whatever that conversation is, you'll vent and then you'll get the advice. And I think that that is healthy. You should have those friendship where you are have the space to vent, but vent in a way that it is healthy and you're not being the victim. We got to be
Yeah.
cognizant of that because we can all really get up. I'm guilty of it. I've been the victim so many. I have to say something, and I think you're on the brink of it, right? You're going to be 40 soon this year, right? You're
This year,
you're
girl,
you're
like
four,
4 or 5 months away.
40 is coming for you, and I gotta say, it is the best decade. It is by far the best decade of life because you just start to settle into yourself. You start to
Mm,
understand yourself so much better. You understand the things that once used to trigger you. Because I'm like you. I have always been really reactive. Again, same thing. I'm Iranian. I'm from the north. I'm very passionate when I speak. I use my hands a lot. I'm very opinionated. I had to learn to really regulate myself. I had to learn to not maybe get offended so quickly about things.
mm,
And I had to understand why certain things would be offensive to me and just really understand and exactly do not react. And I can tell you it's changed my life. I'm not saying I perfected it. Really.
mhm,
I'm dealing with a soon to be teenager and they will test you. But I think it came through that and through, I would say, probably more so professional dealings. The more
mm,
I work with people, and because I work in operations and project management, the more you work with people, the more you understand that you got to really learn how to manage your emotions. You got to learn how to be quiet more than, even though when you know you have the right answer, more times than not, what you knew was going to happen is going to end up happening. You just gotta let that thing play itself out. So
mm,
holding your peace, you know when they say when people are gonna get married, speak now or forever hold your peace. Sometimes it's good to hold your peace. Really.
true.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, listen, I'm excited for 40s. I'm hopefully we're doing the high rocks with my boyfriend. By the way, can I just say that at 39, it feels weird to say boyfriend, and like I catch myself, I'm like boyfriend, like it feels a little bit old partner. I hope he's listening. It's weird to say boyfriend,
No, I
like
got
it's just
you.
weird, right? Like anyway, we're with my boyfriend, he's over there, so he's hearing me. So anyways, it's like we're like I'm at this, going into 40, and I'm actually hopefully we're doing the high rocks if we can register
Yeah.
because we missed the DC one. They get sold out like this. And so we're doing the
Yeah.
couples one in June, and I literally have an alarm
Nice.
set for me at noon on Wednesday so we can book the tickets hopefully. But and the point being is that I want to challenge myself physically, but also I'm just really looking forward to the 40s. And I really, to your point, like my dad always said life starts at 40. So
Yeah.
he always like I grew up with like my dad drilling into me like life starts at 40. And I think I've always lived with this like optimism and enthusiasm towards 40s. And I do believe that we kind of, as long as you have your lessons in your 20s and 30s, I think 40s are meant to be the prime years in my head, because you do know how to
Yeah.
control yourself a little bit more, you know what I mean? And you know who you are, you know what you want, you know what you accept and don't accept, you know?
I think also, look, when you go through divorce, I mean, I went through a divorce. This it's funny because it's 10 years of friendship, but this April will be 10 years that I've been divorced. And if I were to look back at who I was when we met, when I had just first gotten divorced, and
Mm,
man, how traumatized I was. And when I look at it now, I can't say anything but thank you, God, for helping me to go through all of those experiences because maybe sometimes when you're in the eye of the storm, You just don't see that once you get through that storm, the reward is the wisdom. And it's hard because when you're in like the abyss and you're falling and it's a free fall and you don't know what's going to happen, it's hard to be positive. But when I look back at it now, 10 years later, there's nothing that I would change because everything that happened was meant to happen. I think everything that happened was written for it to happen to me because it's supposed to shape me, and everything that happened brought people into my life or took people out of my life that really taught me how to be a better person, and a better version of myself. And I think the greatest thing about the 40s is that you learn how to manage your emotions, but even when it comes to partnerships, right? The way you fall in love when you're a teenager is different from the way you fall in love in your 20s and the way you fall in love in your
Absolutely.
30s. When you get to your 40s, it's no longer about, not that I'm saying there shouldn't be passion. Passion is so important in any kind of friendship or relationship. But the passion changes in the sense that you want to have a life partner. You want to do things like high rocks with that person. It's no longer, yes, it's nice to go out for dinners and nice to go out for dancing, but you want to have a really nice quality of life and you want to enjoy that quality of life together. And the
Yeah.
love language changes. There is love there. It's just that the way you speak it to one another becomes different. So, you know, listen, I am still waiting for I truly believe. I guess maybe your dad hasn't given me a lecture, but I think I'm gonna take that wisdom. I do believe that there is this great love story coming for me. It might happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years, who knows? But divorce
Mhm.
never turned me bitter when it came to
Yeah.
relationships. I still believe in
Yeah.
love. I still believe that there are really good men out there. Maybe the way the world has become has made it more difficult for good men and good women to find each other. And I think the whole online dating thing and people being stuck behind screens, whether it's computers or telephones or whatever it is, has made it more challenging. We don't meet each other as organically as we used to. But man, I'm a romantic. I'm that person who
Yeah.
wants to write that poetry. Like I still believe in that. And yeah, divorce didn't make me bitter to that. It really didn't. And I'm so grateful that it didn't?
It's so important. I'm so glad you said that because I see so many women, and if anybody's listening to this and like going through divorce, have been or still bitter, like please, like take a moment to check yourself and like find a way to get out of that because that is not healthy. That is not helpful. It's like I've seen so many women. I mean, we both have like just live miserable existence because of one bad experience. And listen, I get it. Things are bad, but it's like then you spend years just being bitter, man hating, swearing off men, like everybody's bad, and then you've created this mindset that all the men are bad, and it's not true. There are good men out there, but you won't find them if you're thinking that everybody's bad. Grieve, go through whatever you go through, do you. I've been there too, but don't stay there too long. So I always tell people, like, don't stay too long in the self-pity, in the victim mindset, right? To where it's like, oh, like that's not true. You just, and I have chosen for sure wrong partners in my life, and like, if I were to stay in that mode, oh my God, help me. God help me. I'm so glad, like, whatever, I don't know, whatever character trait I developed over the years or that I had where I never stayed in this deep hole of just victimhood. If anything, I'm grateful for is that. Like, I've never been a victimhood mentality person ever. Like I don't believe in it. And I think it's like the biggest thing that maybe my parents gave me. I don't know. But to your point, like, yeah, like it sucks, you go through it, but then like get it together because it's your life. Like life is too short, you know what I'm saying? And there are a lot of great men out there, you know?
There
And
are.
like,
There
there
are.
really
I mean, I
are.
haven't
There really
I'm
are.
still waiting.
There are. They just might not be in Dubai. I'm just saying. Just kidding. You might need to leave the
Zing.
UAE for a little bit. No shame on any of Dubai people, but
No, I
no, but
think there are.
there
Look,
are good men in Dubai, I'm sure.
there are.
Shouldn't
It
talk about.
is
Okay. Just kidding.
listen, the dating marketplace in Dubai is not that. I mean, it is. There's so many beautiful, accomplished, good women out here, and I think one thing that is, I would say, is on steroids here. That is like the women are just such go getters. Everybody is just hustling, and in general, Dubai does definitely have this hustle mentality. And I think as somebody who has lived in Dubai for almost 40 years now, I think we definitely do need to do an episode because I feel that very recently people just seem to want to come down really hard on it, and I have a different take because I've grown up here, right? I've
Yeah.
spent most of my life here. It's after like I left in Iran and we moved here. But when it comes to dating, it is challenging, and it is challenging to date as a single mother. The rules of engagement and the terms of engagement are a little bit different. You have to be very careful who you let into your life because it's not just yourself. You're not single. You have the responsibility of a child, and you can't just let any Tom, Dick, and Harry into your life, and into that
Yeah.
child's life. So you have to be careful. And yes, there are a lot of men here, a lot of, let's say, eligible bachelors, but quantity isn't always quality, right? So I think what happens is as you get older, and as you'll see once you get into your 40s, the things that once mattered to you, maybe when you were younger, don't necessarily, not that, you're old. I think physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I would say at my prime. I've never felt more balanced than I mean, I still have my days, but
The
depending on where the
Iranian in you.
cycle
We'll just
is.
call that Iranian in you.
But the thing is, I think you understand what's important to you. Like right now, if you were to ask me, what's the most important thing you would want in your partner, or if you were to find a partner, I want it to be emotional intelligence. I don't need him to be tall, even though I'm a very tall lady myself. I want him to be emotionally intelligent. I want him to meet me in the same place as I am. I'm not expecting top G, 1% type of dude. No, no. Just meet me on my level. And my level could be very different from somebody else's level, right? Meet me at my level and let's build an empire together. That empire might be opening up a farm, or setting up a factory, or like, I don't know, doing something, but just have the emotional intelligence so that when we communicate, we're coming from a place that we're hearing each other. And I also do believe, and maybe this might seem a little bit anti-feminist in a way, which I'm not trying to promote anything, but I still do believe in traditional roles. I love chivalry. A man pulling out a seat for you, opening the door for you. When you're walking, he's walking on the outside of the street, of the road, and you're on the, those little
Hmm.
things. Yes,
Yes.
oh, it's maybe you see
They're
in the
not so
movie, but no,
little
just
though. They're not so little though. They're really not. Like there are the big things actually in today's day and age for a man because again it goes back to that the character, the base of the man.
yeah. I think also, look, you and I grew up with very similar father archetypes, right? Very strong, very manly, very patriarchal, positive and negative ways. It is what it is. Nobody is
Yes,
perfect.
yes.
And I can tell you this as a parent, it's very easy for us to judge our parents. It's very easy. It's very easy for us to blame our parents for all of our traumas and stuff like that. But I can tell you, as a parent myself and as a single parent, no matter how many books you read, how many lectures you listen to, and how much advice people give you, it's you and that kid or you and those children, and you do what works best for you. Sometimes I sit here and think to myself, man, have I messed up my kid? Have I done this? Have I done that? Is she going to grow up and talk to one of her friends and be like, my mom was batshit crazy, you know? But and so it's easy to judge our parents, and we all have amazing parents, but we also know the things that have come with being their children, right? But they did the best that they could in the time that they could, under the circumstances that they could, within the financial resources that they had, in the time and place that they were. I will forever, forever, forever be indebted and grateful to my parents because they took me from a little port city on the coast, on the Caspian, brought me to Dubai. From Dubai, took me to Vancouver. I got a Canadian passport, and then I came back to Dubai, thank you God, I've had this amazing career and this amazing life, but it came from those sacrifices. When I
Yeah.
sit and think about it, that journey. Think about it. And I'm sure it's the same with your parents, right? They took you from Dagestan, and then you guys went to the US, right? And then you guys had the whole journey. Like that journey, when you haven't had children, you don't realize how much effort and how much love goes into them doing that for you, because they have to financially take care of it. They have to create a home for you. They have to make sure that you assimilate and amalgamate into the new place that they're taking you. They're away from home. They're away from their mother tongue or their father tongue. They're away from their family. you're all that they have, so they'll get a little bit, clingy. But, like, it's just it takes a lot of sacrifice to be a parent, and it takes a lot of sacrifice to be a good parent. And it will come with a lot of trauma, but I think both of us are the labor of lots of love when it comes to our families. Lots of love.
100%. 100%, 100%. And I think I heard actually this was actually really good. I heard so John Sene, he's actually in Dubai. He's somebody I've been following for many years now. And they have a podcast also, him and Eric. And he said something maybe on his social media, I don't remember, but he said something that was so important. And I think it's so important if you are growing up like us in families where, it was chaotic in many ways and a lot of sacrifices and etc from parents' side, but also like there's things we experience as children, right? Like as a result. And it's so important that story we tell ourselves. And what he was saying is that you have to remember, you have to like look back at your memories. And what he was trying to say is like, if your memories are all bad, you just, you have to almost rewrite your memories, basically looking for the good things that has happened to you. Because if you only look at like the bad things and all of that, then you carrying all those bad memories, all that identity with you. And he said, actually look, like, rewrite your memories. And when he started doing that, because he also had a father who kind of was disconnected from him and so on, he said, once I started to actually rewrite the memories that I had of my dad, I was able to heal and like actually, just heal myself and move forward and so on. And I think it's so important because for many years, I've also been like, well, it's because my dad was like this or da da da, because I was, ripped from my family and my mom and I went to the US at that time, all of those things. But then at the day, and as I get older and as I kind of work on myself and all of those things, I was like, actually, there's been so much beautiful things and I need to focus on that. And I think that gets you out of the victim mentality and into accountability mentality where you're like, you know what, my parents did the best that they could with what they had. That's it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I am who I am because of largely to them. You know what I mean? So something must have gone right. And I think like, yeah.
100%. Listen, I'm telling you, and look, a good parent will always want to do self audits. You always want. Now, our generations are different. Our parents didn't grow up the way we are growing up, but that's because they made those sacrifices for us to get to this point, right? So
Mm,
maybe they didn't have the space, or maybe culturally, or socioeconomically, or just educationally, or even from a self awareness perspective, they didn't have the space to self audit. I think it's really important. I'm sure you do it within your life and in your career, and I do it constantly. And I think one of the things I learned, because there were points, and this is why I'm saying, once you get to your 40s and then this whole journey of like divorce and being single motherhood, at some point I had to start asking my kid, what is it that I'm doing that maybe you don't like? Or what how can mama be better? And when she started to point things out that like maybe she didn't like, it was hard for me to hear, because as a parent you're automatically in that, no, I'm the parent, you need to respect me. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a free range parent. I'm very much a disciplinarian. I believe in the order of things. I believe that you're not your child's friend. You are the parent, and they need boundaries and they need structure. But your child should have that safe space where if you did something wrong and you messed up, they have to come and tell you. They shouldn't be
mm,
so petrified and terrified of the fact that they want to be honest with you. And it's been something I've had to learn. I've messed up a lot. I have messed up a lot with my kid. But at the same time, I'm so lucky that I have this amazing relationship with her that we've built together over the last 10 years. Because, right before she turned two, that's when, life changed. So, and now she's turning 12 in April. So the last 10 years have been a place of growth for me as Bahari, as an individual, but also as my daughter's mother, and as my sister's sister, and as my parents' daughter. You play so many different roles to different people in your life, and sometimes it's difficult to be all of those roles and still be authentic to yourself. But you have to do self audits, and you have to hold yourself accountable. And I didn't do that a lot because, again, I let myself fall into that victim mindset of, "Oh, I'm like this because of this happened." But when I started to kind of think about, okay, I know all of this stuff happened, but what's the positive stuff? Like, what's the great things?
mm,
Like, when I think about it, I love the fact that I got my kind heart from my mom. And I
mm,
love the fact that I got my strength and like honesty and discipline and hard work ethic from my dad. And it's just so important because, it's so easy to judge them. And listen, there's a lot of judgment there. There's a lot of judgment there. But at the same time, we still have to look back and be like, they only knew how to be and who to be with what they had at that point in time. And maybe they didn't have the self-awareness because they were drowning in being parents. I can tell you
Mm,
this. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning. That's why you might
mm,
get these voice notes from me and I'll be like, "Girl, I'll just I'll just go." And then, the next moment I'll be cracking a joke, right? Because sometimes when you're in survival mode, you can't understand anything other than that. But self-auditing, I think in your 40s becomes such an important tool. And I
yeah.
would really I'm not very good with journaling, but I'm very good at talking to myself.
Yeah.
That's my
Same,
journaling,
same. Same,
I just
same.
talk to myself. I always wonder, like, if somebody's in the car next to me, like, I'm just, like, sitting there having these deep conversations, and I'm like, "What is wrong with this?"
Just have headphones in, so it's like you're talking to somebody on the phone. That's the trick.
People say people who talk to themselves are crazy. I think it's healthy. I'm having a
I think it's
conversation with
super
myself.
healthy.
What's wrong with
Yeah.
that? And I
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think it's a great way to kind of sum up this podcast, and as we're kind of closing this out, appreciate your parents, man. They've done the best that you can, the best that they
Yeah.
can, and appreciate your friends that are real and keep it real with you. And I do think for the next maybe a couple of episodes, let's dive deep into like relationships and dating because I think that's an interesting topic and so we should definitely dive into that. So stay tuned for that, and then we'll go from there. There's so many different things, and yeah, let's talk about Dubai. Dubai is a special place. Dubai is a place I consider where Dubai raised me, as I want to say. It really did
Mm.
in many ways. But yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how places also influence us as human beings because I think that's a huge thing.
Anything in life, whether it's relationships with your parents, whether it's friendships, whether it's growth, context always matters.
Yep, absolutely. Well, stay tuned, and we will catch you guys next time.